بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين وأصلي وأسلم على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم أما بعد. My brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's an interesting day, alhamdulillah. Of course, we notice on the 27th evening and 27th night, the masjid is full of people, and we feel as though that spirit of Ramadan is there, and then we come in on the 28th, and subhanAllah, where did everyone go? Right? And no, it's good. I'm not talking about the halaqah, but I mean usually outside you'll see some children playing, you'll see people standing around, but I came in, it was quiet. Right? Rest time? No, there's no such thing as rest time. Tomorrow could be Laylatul Qadr, right? Tomorrow could be Laylatul Qadr, for the kids, inshallah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst those that benefit and maximize this month of Ramadan, and not those that come out for occasions, like the occasion of the 27th night, and the occasion of the last Friday of Ramadan, and the occasion of Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst those that will constantly turn to Him, and not only turn to Him when there's an occasion or celebration with sweets and pakoras and samosas, mashallah. Today's also an interesting day because my father is here and my mother is on the way with my wife as well. So it's an interesting day for us. They're spending some time here with us, alhamdulillah. So I hope each and every one of us makes them feel welcome in Toronto, because people from Montreal have this thing about Toronto, right? They just don't really like Toronto. It's the big city, so alhamdulillah. Tonight we're going to go through Surah Al-Mulk, inshallah, and then we'll go through again the last few surahs of the Quran, and I wanted to spend some time on the last two surahs, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. And tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala, we will go over some of the verses of the Quran in various different places in the Quran which are used when performing ruqya, when trying to protect ourselves or remove from ourselves any magic, black magic that's done upon us, any sort of sihr, any sort of evil eye, how we can remove this. So we'll go through some of the verses of the Quran so that we're familiar with them. Many people wonder, what verses of the Quran do we recite? And you can recite any verses from the Quran, any of the ayat. But there are some that are more powerful. And those are the verses that actually will affirm the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Trying to convince that, whether it's a jinn, someone who's possessed by a jinn, trying to remove it and get it out by using the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we'll go through verses of the Quran that are used specifically for that tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. So for many, I know many people, this is like a hot topic and very interesting for them. So let your friends and families know that tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala, they can come and benefit from that. And tomorrow night will be the 29th night, so we'll be encouraging them to come and listen to the halaqah. They'll spend time here for iftar, then they'll stay for taraweeh and possibly even tahajjud or qiyam, and then subhanAllah, you'll get the reward for inviting them here. And if it's Laylatul Qadr, all the ibadah and the actions that they do, you will get the reward for that, inshallah ta'ala. So encourage the family members and the friends to come to the masjid as well during the last few nights of Ramadan. We'll begin with Surah Al-Mulk, which is the 67th surah of the Quran. And we'll just go through some of the verses that we missed out on and didn't have much time to discuss. But before we actually get into the surah, the Prophet ﷺ let us know of the importance of this surah, the importance of the surah. And he says ﷺ that this surah will intercede on behalf of its reciter. It will intercede on behalf of the person that recites this surah, till the extent that it will not stop interceding until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives us. It will not stop its intercession until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives us of our sins. And therefore the Prophet ﷺ used to encourage the Sahaba radiallahu anhum to recite the surah that has 30 verses, and then highlighted the fact that it's Surah Al-Mulk, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed blessings and barakah in this surah, and it's a surah that subhanAllah is really, when you look at it, it's beautiful, it's sweet to listen to, right? The verses flow, well. It's easy to memorize, and it is attributed to those verses of the Quran that are powerful in terms of meaning and powerful in terms of their benefit towards the one that recites them. In verse number 2, so we know very well Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the surah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here in the second verse says, it is He who created death and life, that He may try you, that you might be tested through death and through life. Which of you is best in deeds, and He is mighty and forgiving. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us through our life and through death. Now we always focus on being tested in terms of our life. We always talk about our wealth, we talk about the children, we talk about families and work and and dealings, and then we talk about our life in terms of our ibadah and how we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To the extent that we worship, are we doing as much as we should? Is there sincerity, devotion? And we focus on that a lot. You'll notice that many khutab will be about that, right? Khutbah, the plural of khutbah is khutab. Many khutab will be about our life and how our life is a test. And people go through difficulties, and people will have trials and make errors as well. We will make errors. Those are all parts of the tests that we will receive in our life. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here talks about death, and how death will be from amongst the tests that He will test us with. And death is a real test. It is the true test that will come to us. Now throughout our tafsir classes, throughout the month, we spoke about the soul and how the soul will be ripped out of the body of those especially that disbelieved, and even more so, it will be more difficult for those that did believe at one point in time but left Islam. It will be as though ripping the soul out of the body, because the soul will want to stay attached to this world. It won't want to leave, because it will realize at that point in time, the person will realize, subhanAllah, I've made a mistake. Right? I've made a mistake. And remember, we discussed the verses of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the soul will come to the throat of the person. It will come to the throat of the person, right about to leave the body. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, now who has the power, who has the ability to put that soul back into the body? It's here. You want it to stay in your body? Go ahead. Who has that ability? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us with death. And we notice that we are tested with death in terms of our own selves, but we are tested with death when it comes to other people as well. Our family members, our relatives, right? We are tested when it comes to their death. We feel it. And for some people, they actually sway away from Islam when a relative of theirs dies. And they say, how can this be? Why did this person receive such an outcome from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? They were a good person. They had a good heart. Why did they receive this? SubhanAllah, recently we remember one of our brothers who was always sitting on the chair over there for Jum'ah, right? His son passed away. What was his son's name? Maqsood Khan, right? And subhanAllah, everyone in the community knew this brother. An amazing person, right? Who was helping not only the Muslim community, but the non-Muslims as well. Trying to make people live civilized, live as human beings, caring for one another, right? Helping the homeless, traveling and doing things for his community, trying to help the Muslim Ummah be recognized as people who are good individuals, who give back to their society, who give back to their environment that they live in. And subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his father was telling me how he passed away. His father was telling me he was out in Woodstock, which is in Ontario, right? Somewhere, I think, to the west, I believe. Northwest, something like that. And so he was there for something, I don't know, some meetings or something. And subhanAllah, he was going to leave that night and drive back. But he told his father, I'm really not feeling well. Now he had a flu. He had the flu for a while. And he told his father, I'm not feeling well. So he called him, he said, I'm just going to stay here. I'll spend the night, I'll check into a hotel, because I really don't feel, good driving like this. And so his father said, okay, check into a hotel. So he slept in a hotel, and then the next morning he got up and he began to drive his journey. He was going to drive all night, but he decided to sleep. And so he gets up the next night and the next morning, and he starts to drive. He drove back to Oakville, this city. That's where he lived, right? Drove back to Oakville, went to his father's house, or his parents' house, right? That was the first place he went. He went to his parents' house to see them. He goes over to his parents' house. As he walks through the door, his father says, I saw in him, he had no energy. He was drained out. He was completely drained out. Right? So I told him, sit down, sit down. He looked like he was going to collapse. And so he asked him, he said, what's wrong? He says, it's okay, don't worry, Baba, everything's fine, don't worry. It's just a flu, and I was driving and I'm just tired, I just need to rest. And subhanAllah, he said, no, you need to go see the doctor. And he couldn't, manage to take him out into the car. He passed out. And so they called an ambulance. The ambulance came. And he said, subhanAllah, I started to get upset. See, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the test of death. He says, I started to get upset with the paramedics, but I didn't voice it to them. He said, normally an ambulance, you call them, it's to get someone to the hospital quickly. They came to the house and they spent a few hours in the house treating him there. Why didn't they take him directly to the hospital? And so he asked them, he said, listen, what's going on? Why, what's the deal? Why aren't you taking him to the hospital? We called you to bring him to the hospital to treat him. They said his condition is so weak, if we take him to the hospital, we're worried he's going to die in the ambulance. So we need to treat him here, right now. We don't have time to take him to the hospital. And so subhanAllah, they were treating him. Then eventually they said, okay, everything's fine, let's take him in. They took him to the hospital. When he reached there, not too long afterwards, he passed away. This was someone who was 40, how old was he? 44, 45 years old. Strong man, strong individual, mashallah. Yes, we know that he fought cancer. We know that. He went through chemotherapy many years ago, but he was a strong individual. And even when you looked at him, he was strong. Right? He was someone who was in the gym. He was working out. He was a strong individual. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us and tests the relatives with death. What happens to some of our family members? They leave the deen. To other people, when they see that their family member is lost, they come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You notice you see them more inside of the masjid. They become more conscious of their own life, that this life is short. When you're in the hospital and you're hooked up and you have tubes going inside and outside of you, coming and going, nurses and doctors constantly, you realize that this life, there's nothing in your hands that you can do to maintain your own life. Absolutely nothing. You can't even control your soul, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we will rip it out of the body. And for those that subhanAllah are connected with Allah, that are close to Allah, that spend, like all of you have spent subhanAllah the entire month of Ramadan here every single evening, sacrificing not having iftar at home, but being over here for the sake of learning the Quran every single day, that's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We wish that we would have this as children when I was growing up. We didn't have this. Right? We didn't have things like this growing up. To have these children, youth coming and seeing them in the masjid, mashallah, young adults in the masjid every single day, missing out on their mother and father's food at home, sitting, enjoying themselves, and then after having the chai and not getting that. Alhamdulillah, some of the brothers bring here, mashallah. I know we get the chai over here as well. Right? But that's good. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us realize, and for those that realize, the removal of the soul from their body is never going to be an easy task, but it will be far easier for the person that is loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they loved Allah during their life, and so the removal of the soul will be easy for them. It will come out easier, much easier, as though you're just exhaling and the soul had come out. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst those who live a life connected to Allah and who return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with ease. In verse number 3 of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asks us, الذي خلق سبع سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says He created the heavens in 7 days. The 7 heavens. Here He mentions the 7 heavens. Doesn't mention the amount of time in these surahs, but then He says, He created them one on top of the other, and if you look at them, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us to go and look at the signs of Allah. Go and look at His creation. And He tells us He's created the skies. How many of us spend time looking for the moon because we want to celebrate Eid the next day? Right? We all go and look for the moon. We're like, Eid, Eid, Eid. We want to have Eid, right? But how many of us look for the moon because we're like, well, you know, Ramadan. Oh, that means we have to fast for 30 days. Let's not look, maybe it won't come, and we have one extra day that we can eat food, right? SubhanAllah, I know a lot of the youth, mashallah, we talk to them, they're like, you know what, if we don't look, then we get one less day. SubhanAllah, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us, but SubhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, look for His signs in His creation. Look at the skies. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to talk about the skies in the next few verses. But look at the sky and how it's so far, and we travel up into the sky when we take an airplane 40,000 feet above, the ground. We are flying in this airplane. And yet we look up in the airplane window, we're looking up and we can't see the top of the sky. How far up is the first sky? And then we look at the outer space. We look at the planets, and all of that is contained within the first sky. It doesn't even exceed the first sky. And no scientist, no matter how much technology we have, no matter the power of the lens that we put on those telescopes, we can't see past the first sky. It's only speculation. It's only speculation. No one knows how much is out there. No one has been able to see that far. And when you look at the stars, they're tens of thousands of miles away. Tens of thousands of miles away. And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about the learned person, the scholar, compared to the average person? And mashallah, you are all scholars, because a scholar is someone who learns regularly. And so if you continue to learn regularly, you will be known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the person who is someone who constantly gains knowledge, who regularly comes to the masjid to gain knowledge. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that person is to the rest of society like the full moon to the rest of the stars. You know, when you look in the sky and there's no light pollution, right? There's no light pollution. Like you go out and you see beautiful stars in the sky. And there's no moon in the sky. So the sky is dark. And you see all the twinkling stars in the sky. But then all of a sudden comes the full moon on the 14th and the 15th of the month. You notice the full moon is there. Where are those stars? Have you ever wondered that? We get so distracted with the full moon. We're looking at the moon. Our children say, look at the moon. We're staring at the moon. It's so beautiful. SubhanAllah, it's full and it's bright. Where are the stars? We don't even care to look for them. And even if we look for the stars, you can't even see them. You might see just a few, but you can't see the rest, because the light from the moon is overpowering the light that comes from the stars. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst those that Allah compares to, or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, it is as though you are someone who's learned and you are like the full moon compared to the rest of the stars. No one notices those stars because they're so busy with the full moon. And what does the stars do? The stars, subhanAllah, they're twinkling. And even though there's hundreds of thousands of stars in our sky, what brings us light at night? What brings us light at night? The moon. And there's just one. There's just one. So the scholar brings to the society a huge amount of benefit. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us each from amongst those. Let's move on, inshaAllah. So Allah says, look at His creation. Try and ponder the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then He says, look for the faults that you would find in my creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenges us and says, look for any faults. Do you see any faults in the sky, in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Are there any faults? There's no faults. It's pure. It's beautiful. It makes so much sense. And when it doesn't make sense, it's because there's not a need for us to try to understand it. It's there for a reason. Like, for example, if we look at ourselves, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran all the time, look at yourself. Right? How many of us know about the appendix? What does the appendix do in our body? Okay? It hurts our body when it gets infected, right? But what does it do? Why is it there? Why is the appendix in the body? Does anybody know? Where's Dr. Waqad? He's not here today. So it's a protrusion of the large intestine. So it's basically an offshoot of the large intestine. What's its purpose? What's the purpose? Are you a doctor? Pharmacist. What's the purpose of that appendix? Do we know? There are bacteria there that help us digest. If we remove it from our body, does it change anything? Definitely based on science, or based on, of course, because Allah put it there, right? It has no purpose. It has no purpose. Look at the amount of knowledge that our doctors have. Look at the amount of money that goes into the technology that is used to develop, greater amounts of medical assistance and medical aid. Look at the amount of people that have spent centuries looking into the human body. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put something inside of us, and He says, look at the creation. Do you find any faults? And doctors look at the creation, the body, and they see this appendix and they say, it's there. What is it for? We don't know. I've read, yes, like you said, that it is, an offshoot, something attached to the appendix, to the intestines, and there is some sort of wastage that goes in there. It has, some acids in it, or bacterias, I don't know, that could, help in digesting the foods. But is there a purpose for it? When the doctors cut it out and say, there's no purpose, just remove it. Wait a second. There has to be a purpose for it. But even though us as human beings don't see the purpose for the appendix that's inside of us, it's there for a reason. There has to be a reason for it. Because every single thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, He created perfectly and with a reason, with a purpose. There has to be a purpose for it. We just haven't found it yet. We just haven't found it. So for everything, good or bad, there's a purpose. And when we look at the creation, some people complain and say, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create these diseases like AIDS? Why did He create diseases like cancer? Right? And we say, subhanAllah, look at cancer, it's one of the largest, or it is the disease on earth that is killing the majority of the people. Right? I forgot the statistics right now, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but the amount of people a year that die from cancer is so great. And subhanAllah, people question, why did Allah create this? There's no purpose for it. It's just killing people. No, there's a purpose. There are many purposes in it. One of them, as we mentioned before, is that when we have good health, and we look at people who have a disease or have an illness, have some sort of disability, have something inside of them that makes life a little bit more difficult for them, we then recognize the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us, that we have not been given that difficulty. That person has become a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me and you. They are a sign of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we recognize Allah has created something and given it to someone for me to understand that I could get that as well. I have no control over myself. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give me the health and remove the disease. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who gives health, can take health as well. And here Allah is telling us, look at the creation. Do you see any faults? Do you see any problems? And look at the next verse. Verse number 4, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثُمَّ ارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ كَرَّتَيْنِ يَنْقَلِبْ إِلَيْكَ الْبَصَرُ خَاسِئًا وَهُوَ حَسِيرٌ. Then look again. After you've looked for the faults and you haven't found any, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, look again and try and see. And then He says, your sight will return to you in a state of humiliation, and it's worn out. That you will exhaust yourself looking for defects in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for faults in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will exhaust yourself. You will look and look and look, and you will search forever, and you will only realize that you have only harmed your eyes trying to look for those faults in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so everything was created for a purpose, created perfectly. And we know that, subhanAllah, from the best of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is human beings. The human beings. The human beings are from the best of the creation of Allah. Why? I told you the answer before. You should know why. Why are we from the best of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We have free will, which means we have sense. We have an aql. We have the ability to decide. We have the ability to say yes or no. I'm going here, I'm not going there. I'm going to eat this, I'm not going to eat that. Halal, haram, permissible, not permissible. We've been given that ability, and therefore we are the ones who have to make that choice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before coming to Adam alayhi salam and giving him that, the ability to make a choice, had gone to other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asked them, from amongst them is the mountains, do you want to have the ability of choice? No. None of them felt as though they were capable of holding this, they saw it as such a great responsibility, not a burden, a great responsibility on their shoulders. And so Adam alayhi salam agreed, I will take it, and our people, Bani Adam, the children of Adam alayhi salam and Hawa, which is me and you, we are the ones who received this choice. We can say yes, we can say no. We can worship Allah, we can worship someone other than Allah. You have the choice. Allah gave you the choice. You want to do it, go and do it. But be careful. That choice can can make you end up in Jannah or in Jahannam. So every single decision that we make in our lives is a decision of Jannah or Jahannam. Every single decision. The next time you need to make a decision, whether it's a decision to sign for a new job position, or it's the decision to go somewhere, to travel to a different country on vacation. It's a decision to buy a new car, and you're choosing between two cars. You're going to buy a car regardless, but either way, you will buy a car. Your goal is to buy a car, but you're choosing between two of them. And both of them are German, for example. But you're choosing between these two cars. Make sure that your choice is the choice of your Jannah and not the choice of your Jahannam. What I mean by that is your choice to choose that car could be a choice that one has 0% interest financing, the other one has 1% or 0.9%. Are you going to buy Jannah for 0.9%, not even 1%? Or are you going to buy Jannah for 0%? Of course we're going to go with 0%, right? That's the choice that we will make. Because we know that means every single thing that we do in our life, every decision is not a decision of, oh, do I want this? Do I need the blue? Do I want the black? Should I get the red? Does it need to be purple? Metallic? Not metallic? Matte finish? Do I want the sports car? Lowered suspension? What do I want in life? If you're purchasing a house, do you want the 5-bedroom or is it sufficient to do with 3? When you're purchasing the house and you're thinking, oh, you know what? We need a bigger place. We need more property for our children to play. Or is it sufficient with half of that size? Because that means Jannah and this one means Jahannam. Which one is better? Right? And so when we make our decisions, every single decision, mashallah, every single decision is based on Jannah and Jahannam. Remember that concept. Never forget this concept. It's a concept of your life. Every single thing that you do in your life, you are responsible for. And so then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on into verse number 5, and He mentions how the stars have been placed there, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ زَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحَ وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينِ. He placed the stars in the sky as rujum. Rujum is like an arrow, right? An arrow that is used to throw, or a spear. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes those stars, or commands the stars to be thrown. And that's why we see those shooting stars. They're thrown at the shayateen. وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينِ وَأَعْتَدْنَا لَهُمْ عَذَابَ السَّعِيرِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we've placed them there perfectly, and they're used to throw like arrows at the shaitan. When they're coming to cause corruption on earth, He stops them and makes it easier for us. And when they're trying to penetrate into the higher levels, where only the angels can go. He shoots them or has them shot. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the stars in those ways. In verses 6 to 11, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the description of Jahannam. And subhanAllah, I really didn't expect to spend 30 minutes on just the first five verses of the surah, right? I really didn't expect to do that. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the description of Jahannam that we did touch upon very slightly. In verse number 7 though, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how the people that will be placed in Jahannam, as they go to Jahannam in groups, right? They'll go to Jahannam in groups. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِذَا أُلْقُوا فِيهَا سَمِعُوا لَهَا. What did they hear? شَهِيقًا. They heard this loud cry. إِذَا أُلْقُوا فِيهَا سَمِعُوا لَهَا شَهِيقًا وَهِيَ تَفُورُ. They hear this loud cry, and it's just yelling. It's yelling, it's loud yelling that they hear from the people that are already inside Jahannam. And then, وَهِيَ تَفُورُ, it's as though they're simmering. You know when you take a frying pan and you put a little bit of water in the frying pan. Our mothers and sisters know this, but for some of us we don't cook enough, right? To simmer, it means as though you put the frying pan on top of the stove, you turn the temperature on high, so it's maximum, but you only put a little bit of water in there. You just put a little bit of water, like a centimeter of water inside that pan. And you notice that it starts to boil a little bit and it's simmering. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes that the people who are making that sound that they hear coming from Jahannam, as those who are approaching it to be placed into it, they will hear the sound of those people simmering inside Jahannam. That's the description that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. The simmering cry of the people of Jahannam. So again, remember just before this we said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the ability to choose. You can choose Jannah, you can choose Jahannam. We get to choose that. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then goes on to continue in verse number 8. Every time a group is added to it, they'll be asked, weren't you warned about this? Were you not warned about Jahannam? Were you not warned that a punishment will come to you? And what will the people say? Yes, we were warned, and a messenger was sent to us, but we didn't listen. And we thought that this was not true. We thought that this would not be a reality. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells it to us before it actually even happens. Imagine if He sent to us a book, the Quran, that didn't include any of these lessons for us, showing us signs of the future, signs of things that will happen. It's a guarantee that these will happen. This is the haqq, this is the truth, this is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no debate. Every single thing that came in the Quran is true, and we believe in it. We submit to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to do. And so He warns us in the Quran, and we know it. We say that we testify everything in the Quran is true and real. And He gave us those examples. Imagine if He never did. We would complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, no, you didn't give us that message. You didn't give us the messenger. You didn't give us any sort of ayat, any warning. There were no signs of warning. We never heard of anything about this, that this would happen to us. But He warned us. And the warning came. And the messengers came. And the prophets came. And they taught us what we need to know. And yet we still find that from amongst society, people are ignorant, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide each and every one of us upon this deen. We'll move on inshaAllah ta'ala. Verses 12 to 15, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He knows our hearts and He knows our belief, right? He knows our hearts and He knows our belief. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created every single thing on the face of this earth, and the earth itself is subservient to us. The earth itself is giving back to us. It is as though it's serving us. It helps us in every way, shape, and form. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human beings and placed us on earth. And many times we think, why did Allah put us here on earth? Right? We think as though the earth is a punishment for us. Yes, the earth is Sijnul Muslim. It's a place where we feel stuck. We feel trapped because of society and what's happening around us. But at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us He created the earth and it helps us, it serves us, it assists us in different ways. As He mentions in the surah, there's paths, like the roads that He makes for us to travel on, the seas and the oceans for us to travel through from one continent to the other continent, and now with the use of airplanes. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the bird here in this surah as well. The birds, how they travel from one place to the other using their wings, and now we use the modern day wings, which is the airplanes, and we fly from one continent to the other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this whole world is literally helping us. It's assisting us if we use it in ways that it will assist us. If we use it in ways that it destroys us, then it can do that as well. Right? We can use and abuse the earth. We can use and abuse what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, either to help us or to destroy us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst those that benefit from this earth. We take, from the trees, the beautiful fruits, and the plants, the vegetables that come from it, and we enjoy it, right? We walk through the door, we saw hundreds of samosas, and there'll be loads of samosas, inshaAllah ta'ala, that we will be able to eat. But subhanAllah, what's inside the samosas? The beautiful, agriculture that came from the ground that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in terms of produce that we enjoy so much from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? A blessing on the face of this earth. We take from it. We take from the earth all the time. When we get into our cars, what do we do? Today I'm driving a rental car. Right? You get into the car, you get in like, mashallah, there's lights. There's lights on the dashboard, there's lights underneath the seats, underneath the dash, there's lights everywhere, it's beautiful. You have computer systems, and you heard me talking about the Ford Fusion last time I had, where you literally just put your hand on the handle, and it knows that you're the person with the key in your pocket, and the door unlocks. Right? You put your hands on the steering wheel, and because it's cold out, it automatically starts to heat right where your hands are. Not on the other parts of the steering wheel, right where your hands are. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us that the earth is literally serving us, it's helping us to get closer to Allah. Every single thing is a sign for us to recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. Do we see the signs? That car that I mentioned, you get into the car, you smell the smell, you're like, oh, mashallah, new car scent, alhamdulillah, right? We can't even replicate that. You notice that? How many people, how many companies have air fresheners and they call the scent new car scent, and you get it and you put it in your car like, this is not new car scent. This is not the scent of the new car. This is a failed attempt at new car scent, right? New car scent is only produced by the actual manufacturer that makes the car, and then you get that scent. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us that way as well. But then the car itself is made out of what? Metal, steel. Where does the steel come from? The earth. It comes from the earth. Everything comes from the earth. We ourselves come from the earth. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala molded us from the earth, and we know we mentioned, don't walk on this earth. La tamshi, don't walk on this earth. How? Maraha, thinking that mashallah, you're a big shot, you're big timer, full of pride, and you walk the face of the earth thinking that you own this earth. The earth owns us. In the sense that one day we will be placed under the ground and dirt will be thrown on top of us. When you're laying down 9 feet under the ground, do you own the earth or the earth owns you? Ask yourself. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us these signs in the Quran constantly and always to think about and to wonder of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In verse number 23 of the surah, Surah Al-Mulk, and don't worry, if we don't touch the last two surahs of the Quran today, we will talk about them tomorrow, definitely, because like I said, for those that weren't here, tomorrow we're going to be talking about the verses of the Quran that are used for ruqyah, to do ruqyah, to relieve yourself from any sort of black magic or jinn possession or any sort of evil like nazar, right? As we say in Urdu, or evil eye that's been done upon someone. So the verses of the Quran that will help for that, we will touch upon those tomorrow, inshaAllah ta'ala. So these last two surahs of the Quran are beneficial in that sense as well. So if we don't get to it, then we will tomorrow, definitely. Verse number 23, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He created us with hearing, with sight, and with hearts. Right? With hearing, with sight, and with hearts. As He says, قُلْ هُوَ الَّذِي أَنشَأَكُمْ وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ. Even though we've been given so many things, like our sight. Imagine right now if you close your eyes and keep them closed for the rest of the halaqah. Imagine if you were to do that. And think that, subhanAllah, this is what I would see every single day if I was blind. Nothing. You wouldn't see the colors. You wouldn't see your friends. You wouldn't see your family. You wouldn't see your children. You wouldn't see your parents. You wouldn't see anything. Nothing. It's just dark. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the sight. He gave us the hearing. He gave us the heart. And we have feelings as well. When He talks about the heart, we have feelings. Right? We feel for people. We enjoy being around some people. Right? Sometimes we hate being around other people, but we shouldn't hate them for a long time. Maybe hate the action, don't hate the person. Right? And so all of these feelings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us, but then what does He say? We don't thank Him. We don't thank Him for what He's given us. We try and remind ourselves always, and these are the last few nights of Ramadan, raise your hands and don't simply ask for things from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thank Him for giving us the ability to reach this month of Ramadan. Thank Him for giving us the ability to stand and to sit. Some people can't sit on the floor. They're only capable of sitting on chairs. Some people can't stand for qiyam. They can't stand for even their own salat, the regular 5 compulsory prayers, because it's too difficult, it's too hard upon their joints. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our dua. In verse number 30, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you lost all water, what would happen? And here He's giving us an example. Water in the middle of the desert. Is that not your lifeline? It is. Without water, you die. And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is revealing the verse to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you lost, tell them, if you lost all of your water, who would give you water? How would you survive? Now think of it for us. If we lost all of our electricity, how would we survive? People would pull their hair out saying, I need to check my email, right? I need to make a phone call, but you can't charge your phone to make a phone call, right? Today you can't even charge your watch anymore. My watch, I need to charge it every 7 days, right? I would lose track of time if I didn't have electricity. Imagine if we lost our electricity, because today electricity is our lifeline. We notice that, subhanAllah, wherever we go, even sometimes people in the bathroom, they're using their phones, right? That's the lifeline. Electricity. Imagine if we lost our electricity. How would we be? Who would give us electricity again? Where would we get it from? From what? We'd go and we'd build a plant that would hydroelectricity with the water that turns the turbines to give us electricity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what if I took away the water? What would you do? What would we do? Where would we get that power from? It only comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if the power plant completely broke down. I remember a few months ago, I was in Cape Town, South Africa. Their power plant, a nuclear power plant, no, it was a coal power plant, right? And subhanAllah, their power plant had a crane that collapsed, and when it collapsed, it knocked over the silo, and subhanAllah, they can't use the power plant anymore, like in terms of generating the amount of electricity that they used to. So they can only produce a certain amount on the part of the power plant that was not destroyed. And so they have this thing known as load shedding, right? Throughout the day, they can only allow certain areas to have electricity. So the main CBD, the central business district, like the downtown area, they will get electricity during the day. All the suburbs, shut down, no electricity. In the evening, it's the opposite. You'll get electricity in the suburbs, so people can cook their food and they can see inside of their house, they can wash their clothing, and then in the middle of the night, electricity cuts off again. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the power to give us the electricity. Even when the power plant is completely destroyed, we can go and flick the switch on and electricity can still come. Because it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? If He has the ability to make our hearts beat without us even knowing and thinking 5 seconds ago about our heart and how it's beating on its own, it's only when we remember our heart is beating that we actually recognize that it's beating. But throughout this entire day, no one stopped to think my heart is beating. No one stopped to think air's going into my lungs, they're expanding, right? No one stopped to think that, subhanAllah, the blood is flowing with every single beat. All of that blood is flowing through my entire body. No one stopped to think of that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing it and making it happen. And it continues to happen whether we like it or not. It continues and continues and continues. It doesn't shut down at night. It keeps going. It keeps going and it keeps going. We move on to Surah Al-Fil, inshaAllah ta'ala. Right? Surah Al-Fil. I wanted to talk about this surah because of the children. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Fil, which is Surah 105 of the Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this surah, He's talking about a massive army of elephants that came from Yemen to go and attack the people that lived around the Kaaba. And it was led by this army. The army was led by a person known as the ruler. His name was Abraha. Not Ibrahim, the prophet, Abraha. Right? And so he was leading this army of elephants. How many of you have sat on an elephant before? Raise your hand. Wow, mashallah, quite a few of you. Right? I rode an elephant in Thailand on my last trip about a month and a half ago. These are massive animals, massive creation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The foot itself, if it steps on you, you're crushed like an ant, right? And subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, showed us in the story, this army was going in to conquer Makkah, to try and take over Makkah. And because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to preserve its sanctity and protect Makkah, He sent these birds. He sent birds flying in the sky at a height that when they dropped a pebble, that pebble fell down with such force that it pierced through not only the soldier that was riding the elephant, but through the body of the elephant as well, killing the elephants, stopping the elephants in their own tracks without even letting them go any further. But then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? There were some from amongst those that did not get hurt, okay? There were some that did not die. They all got hurt or died, but some of them got injured, right? So this stone going through them injured them. And it is said that Abraha, the stone went through him and actually cut his heart. His heart got pierced with the stone. And so he was in pain, he was struggling, but he made his way back to Yemen. And he warned his people about what happened and told them of the situation and what happened and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed those massive elephants, right? Their ears, look at the size of our ears, right? We can just hold on to our ear. An elephant's ear is like this big. Massive, massive ear. Huge, round like that. That's just the ear. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed it with a pebble, showing us the example of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then, at the very end of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He destroyed them. And then He mentions, فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ. What is that? He made them destroyed to the extent, the army and the people, to the extent, as well as the elephants, that they were turned into as though, when a cow or a cattle eats grain, and then the grain is, goes into the body and it's digested and it comes out in dung, right? Like dung. We know what dung is, right? For those children that don't, it's animal poop, right? He made them just like that, as though they were useless. When you look at it, don't just think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He destroyed them and they were completely destroyed. He destroyed them and humiliated them, as though they were just like dung that had been used, chewed up, and just nothing. It just lays on the ground and it's useless. When people see it, they either push it, they actually don't even want to push it to the side because they don't want that to get on them. They don't want to smell. So they leave it there and they just walk around it. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about those that try to attack the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at how He protected His house. He made them so humiliated. Don't think that you can go against the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Never ever think that you can go against the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we said and discussed throughout our halaqah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the ability to choose. The last surah that we will take insha'Allah ta'ala, actually we'll do this tomorrow. We'll do this tomorrow. We'll leave 5 minutes insha'Allah for dua. Right? So we'll do this tomorrow. We'll cover أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ tomorrow. We'll touch very slightly on إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ, right? And the importance of it and how it relates to our time. And then we'll get into those verses of the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that are useful for us in terms of our belief, but so powerful that it actually removes evil from our bodies and evil that might be done upon us. So we'll touch upon the verses of the Quran with regards to, or those that are related to Ruqya tomorrow, insha'Allah ta'ala. And then the following day, insha'Allah, we'll talk a little bit about Eid and how Eid should be celebrated and the importance of Eid and why was Eid even given to us as a day of celebration. Why was it given to us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How did the Sahaba used to celebrate Eid and what is the purpose of it there? In that sense, we'll talk about that for about a half an hour on Thursday evening, insha'Allah, and then we'll use the last half an hour for everyone to just be able to make dua, do some adhkar, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness in the last half an hour of this month of Ramadan, because that is the time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at the worshippers and asks who from amongst them is deserving of my forgiveness, and He forgives them. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst those who are forgiven. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.